This is a lecture on the central nervous system, which is a part of Chapter 3. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain controls how we think, learn, move, and feel, and the spinal cord carries messages back and forth between the brain and the nerves that run throughout the body. So let's look at the spinal cord first. As we just mentioned, it is an extension of the brain, but it not only routes messages to and from the brain, but it also has its own system of automatic processes called reflexes. Probably all know what a reflex is, but let's define it. A reflex is a sudden and involuntary response to stimuli. It helps organisms to quickly adapt to an adverse circumstance that could have the potential to cause bodily harm or even death. An example would be pulling your hand away immediately after touching a hot or cold object. That's a reflex. You just automatically do it. You really don't even have to think about it. You just automatically do it. Nerves branch out from the spine at each vertebrae, and there are two types of nerves. Sensory nerves bring information into the spinal cord and brain from the peripheral nervous system. Again, the central nervous system is made up of your brain and your spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system is made up of every other neuron and nerve in your body. There are also motor nerves, which are cells in the brain and spinal cord that allow us to move, speak, swallow, and breathe by sending commands from the brain to the muscles that carry out these functions. So let's look at a picture of the brain, moving on from the spinal cord. There are four lobes in the brain. As you can see from the diagram, there's the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. So let's look at each one of these and discuss what they do and what part they take. So first looking at the frontal lobe, and then there are also structures within the frontal lobe, the premotor cortex, the motor cortex, the prefrontal cortex, and Broca's area. The frontal lobe is involved in reasoning, motor control, emotion, and language. As far as the four parts of it go, the motor cortex, the premotor cortex is part of the motor cortex. The premotor cortex anticipates and plans movements based on input from external or sensory cues, such as vision. We know that's one of the five senses, and auditory cues. So it takes those in and anticipates the movements that will be made based on those cues. And the motor cortex executes these movements. The prefrontal cortex is known to be the higher order association center of the brain. It is responsible for decision making, reasoning, personality expression, maintaining social appropriateness, and other complex cognitive behaviors. So as it mentions, it's the higher order part. It focuses on those complex behaviors. Broca's area, as if you remember from the diagram, is very small but a very vital region in the brain, which is responsible for producing speech and processing language. Most people rely on this part of the brain to form words, construct sentences, and organize grammar. So even though it's small, like it says, it's very vital, because without it, communication would become very difficult. So moving on from the frontal lobe, let's look at the parietal lobe. The parietal lobe is a key part of your understanding of the world around you. It processes your sense of touch and assembles input from your other senses into a form you can use. Your parietal lobe also helps you understand where you are in relation to other things that your senses are picking up around you. So just to look at kind of some basic main functions on the right, spatial awareness and navigation. As it just mentioned, it helps you pick up on where things are in space around you and how you navigate those things. Sensory integration, all the senses, touch, pain, pressure, and temperature, helps you navigate those and integrate those. Body perception and movement coordination, reading, writing, and mathematical abilities. Attention allocation, where should I focus my attention? And perception of environments and object manipulation. So let's look at the temporal lobe. It is part of the cerebral cortex, which plays a role in memory. enables you to process sound and vision, and is crucial for recognizing objects and language. Warnick's area is located in the temporal lobe. Remember earlier we discussed Broca's area, which affects your ability to form language, form words, to communicate. The opposite of Broca's area, essentially, is Wernicke's area, which affects your ability to understand language. So Broca's area affects your ability to create language and communicate. Wernicke's area affects your ability to understand what's being said. Moving on, let's look at the last lobe of the brain, the occipital lobe, which is the smallest and rearmost of the lobes, if you remember from the diagram. But it is the visual processing hub of your brain. This area processes visual signals and works cooperatively with many other brain areas. It plays a crucial role in language and reading, storing memories, recognizing familiar places and faces, and much more. So I think that's a good review of the spinal cord and the brain and the different parts of the brain. If you have any questions, though, as always, please let me know and we'll figure it out. Thank you.